Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today I want to share with you 5 character traits that destroy a leader's integrity. And the reason I'm doing this podcast is I meet a lot of leaders. I meet a lot of people. I meet a lot of people who want to become leaders who are not yet leaders. And I just want to share, I probably could list 100 traits that destroy a leader's integrity, but picked out 5 of them. I'm going to talk to you about these. I may do another podcast later on 5 more traits that destroy a leader's integrity. But these are some of the key traits that would just cost a leader a lot of trust. So your crews, your teams, whatever you call those folks who report to you, they can handle tough jobs. They can handle bad weather. They can handle tight deadlines. They might moan and groan about those things, but they can handle it. But what those folks don't want to do, they don't want to have to deal with a bad boss, a boss who acts like they don't have to follow the rules that they tell everybody else they've got to follow. Good leaders, they're going to own their mistakes. They're going to model. They're going to lead by example. They're going to put the team first, not themselves. They're going to stay consistent no matter who's watching. I remember back when I was working on the front lines, I used to talk about these bosses not being consistent, but that ain't what I called them. I just called them unstable. Pretty sure you can relate to that. Unstable. You don't know who they're going to be on any given day. You don't know who they're going to be when things go south. One thing you usually do know is who they're going to be when the boss is standing beside them, when their boss is standing beside them. Most often they'll be somebody they're not when their boss is not standing beside them. But if you'll do those things, if you'll own your mistakes, you'll put your team first, you'll be consistent no matter what. That means you have integrity if you can be consistent and in alignment with high character principles. You do that, and your team, your crew, they'll run through walls for you. They'll have your back. They'll do more than expected. They'll do it before it's expected. They'll do it better than expected. But if you're a hypocrite, if you like to cast blame, if you like to manipulate your team, this is what's going to happen right here. You'll watch your best folks walk out the door. Or actually, they may do something worse than that. And this is very, very common. And it's worse than walking out the door. They quit but stay. And they keep showing up, waiting on something else better to come along. But while they're on your team, they're doing the bare minimum to keep their job. So let's talk about these 5 traits. 5 character traits that destroy a leader's integrity. So as we go through these, there's a lot of different names for these traits. I'm going to try to talk them like I always do. Common sense language. The first one is lying. Or I don't use profanity, but a lot of folks out there in the blue collar world do, and you'll know this abbreviation, BS. So when you got a boss that does a lot of lying or a lot of BSing, you know what I'm talking about? That's a trait that'll run some folks off. And you already know if you had a boss like this, they might have ran you off already. Or if you got one like this now, you looking for another job or wishing you had another job. So the point is, if the boss says one thing and does another, that's a lie. That's being two-faced. right? That's BSing somebody. If I tell you to do one thing, but yet I don't do it, I'm not modeling that as a leader. I'm gonna lose integrity with you. Or, I mean, a straight up lying boss. That's pretty pathetic. But there's a lot of bosses that do it. I had a bunch of them in my career, and I'm teaching you this stuff to provoke thought, raise awareness. What you need to do if you're a leader or you're aspiring to be a leader, don't do these things. If you do these things, stop doing these things. And initially, you may have to just stop doing less of these things, but keep working on it until you can get your character, till you can develop the integrity to be aligned with high impact principles, which is the opposite of the things I'm talking to you today. What I'm talking to you today about are low impact character traits, principles that low impact leaders have. But if you're a two-faced leader, if you're telling lies, and I don't mean just the big lies, I mean any lies. Because see, if a leader will lie about the little stuff to their team, they will absolutely lie about the big stuff. One of the things I always tell people, whatever character someone is showing you, no matter what the situation is, you can bet on this. Their character's much worse than what they're showing you in public. So if you got a bad boss doing any of these 5 things I'm talking about, I promise you they're doing a lot worse in private. But you do these things, trust's gonna be gone. And once it's gone, your whole crew, your whole team, stop believing in anything you're saying. And that's a sad place to be. And I promise I have seen so many leaders in this place. And again, it may not be because of any of these 5 traits, but there's hundreds of traits that make a boss bad and cause them to lose integrity. But if they're doing any of these traits, they're losing integrity. They're just doing one. They're doing all 5. And it's sad to say, but you may know this. There's a lot of leaders out there who are doing these 5 things. Bad bosses. So number 2, the second trait that'll cause a leader to lose their integrity. And I kind of touched on it a little, but it's slightly different. But talking the talk, but not walking the walk. I've seen a lot of leaders out in my career. They preach safety first, but they don't live safety first. They'll cut corners. You'll see them do it. I remember, I worked in manufacturing plants. We always had to have on safety glasses. So a lot of times somebody get caught without the safety glasses, do it enough times, they get written up, that sort of stuff. Do it a whole lot, they get terminated. But bosses always preaching safety, 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 preaching, wear your PPE, your personal protective equipment, earplugs, steel toes, all that stuff, safety glasses, whatever you needed in a specific situation. Sometimes other things besides that. But then you see a boss, maybe they got to jump in and help somebody out. And maybe the PPE for that job is you got to have gloves on when you're dealing with the product. And then the boss will jump in and do it without gloves. Just something simple as that. That's a loss of integrity. Any boss, they may say we all in this together. You got to do it. I'm gonna do it. But then you see them cutting corners. I've seen them where when you're up in a lift or something, you're supposed to have the harness on. Sometimes I've seen something going wrong, and the boss got to get up in a lift to do something, and they don't put the harness on. They'll laugh, they'll joke about it. But what you're doing when you cut corners as a boss is you're teaching everyone else to cut corners. Now, they may not cut the same corner you cut, but it teaches them that cutting corners when necessary, relative to whenever they decide it's necessary, they can cut a corner. So that means whenever you decide it's necessary, you can cut a corner. See how this works? What we're modeling is it's okay to cut corners if you think you need to, if you make a good enough excuse. That's the way it works. That's what happens when a leader talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk. And then on top of that, to make it even worse, sometimes those leaders who are cutting corners, they catch you cutting the corner, they're going to throw you under the bus. You don't want to be that leader. And if you've had the unfortunate opportunity to work for those kind of leaders or are working for those kind of leaders at the moment, then the lesson that I always teach you applies here. You can learn a lot from a bad boss. If you got to be in a situation where you got a bad boss, don't just be in the situation and be mad, sad, frustrated, irritated at the boss. Pay attention. They're teaching you what not to do and teaching you what not to do and how not to be. But they're the hypocrisy of some of these leaders I've seen, and you don't want to be one. Your goal as a leader, if you want to get ridiculous results, build a high performance team, you want to build trust. All these things I'm talking to you about today create distrust. And if you've had to work for one of these bosses, you already know it. But a lot of times people get put into a leadership position and they forget some reason. They seem to forget all that stuff that somebody else done to them. Or they hadn't had this type training, leadership development training, so they hadn't been made aware of how their behavior, their choices impact their influence. Because that's what we're talking about when it comes to leadership. All these 5 things I'm talking to you about today, as a leader, they kill your influence. They diminish it. They minimize it. These things make people, when you turn around and walk off, makes people roll their eyes at you. Makes people who hadn't done enough work on themselves, which is a lot of people, talk bad about you, give you bad word of mouth advertisement as a leader. That ain't a good spot to be. Let's talk about number 3, the third trait, being selfish, having a big ego, wanting to be the big dog, the hot shot. Narcissism. Any leader who's making everything about him or her, that ain't a good place to be. A lot of leaders, they ain't worried about your bonus, they worried about their bonus. They may not say it, but that's what they worried about. And even if they don't say it, you probably already know it. A lot of times they ain't worried about your comfort, they worried about their comfort. A lot of these bosses, especially these narcissistic, self-centered bosses, they come across and act like they're better than everybody else. Just because they're the boss, they think they're better than everybody else. And see, these bosses, they only care about looking good. They don't care about being good. They just want to look good. Not necessarily to you, but to their boss and their boss's boss and their boss's boss's boss. You get me? You don't want to be one of these folks. And I'm telling you, without a lot of personal character development, a lot of in-depth learning and understanding about what high impact character looks like, it's easy to be doing these things and not even realize you're doing these things. But I'm gonna tell you what, the folks reporting to you, they know you're doing these things. They look at you through a magnifying glass. It's pretty amazing what they see. Guess who decides what they see? You. But see, your teams, your crews, they see right through all this stuff. And they figure, why over-deliver for you if you're that kind of leader? And you know it, again, if you've reported for somebody, why would you over-deliver for these people? I'm going to tell you why you would. Most people wouldn't, but I'm going to tell you why somebody would. It's because, like, if it's me, if I'm reporting to somebody like that, which I have a lot in my life, I'm going to over-deliver anyway because I ain't working for them. I'm working for me. I'm going to do a good job no matter what because I want a good reputation myself. My leader may not have a good reputation, but I want to have a good reputation. Me slacking off on the job to make my leader look bad, make me look worse. If you don't understand that, you need to listen to a lot of my other podcasts. But I don't want to dive too deep into that. But I'm going to tell you what, the kind of person who will tear it up, make it happen for a bad boss, in spite of reporting to a bad boss with a lot of these poor character traits, they're just simply value-driven people. They're going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And if they have a lot of character, they ain't going to report to that boss long. They're going to find them a new boss. They're going to fire that boss and go find them a new one. So let's talk about the fourth thing. And this is never owning your mistakes. The fourth trait, blaming others, right? Instead of taking responsibility. Not holding yourself accountable as a leader. A lot of leaders hold other people accountable all day long. But they won't look in that mirror and hold themselves accountable. See, if I'm leading my team, something goes wrong on my team, that's my fault. Why didn't I train them better? Why didn't I communicate better? Why wasn't I out there helping them? Why wasn't I out there overseeing it? Because maybe they didn't know what they were doing this time because it was something new. But instead, a weak boss, a poor character, low impact boss, a lot of times when they know that situation is coming up, they know their team's going to struggle. And what they do, they get out of the picture. They don't want to be around, so that way they can blame their team. They think they're setting it up because, see, if they get involved, then they know the boss is going to hold them accountable too. Especially if they got a bad boss like we're talking about, right? The high-impact leadership rolls uphill. Every leader at every level ought to be taking accountability. But if you got a boss or you are a boss, when something goes wrong, you start pointing fingers at your team, at your crew, at the weather, at the tools, at the boss. You know, these people who never own their mistakes, who don't take accountability, don't take responsibility, they point the finger at everybody except one person. And that's the one that's truly responsible, if they're a high-impact leader. That's themselves. But see, they can't do that because they're not a high-impact leader. And people hate to report to this kind of boss. And again, I'm telling you, a lot of these lessons I teach on my podcast, right, in my books, they come from me doing what I told you to do earlier. Learn what not to do and how not to be from all these bad bosses. And I had a ton of them in my blue-collar manufacturing career. And I met a bunch of them and had to support a bunch of them when I was a consultant. But a real leader, they say, my bad. I messed up. Let's figure out what went wrong. Let's fix it. Ain't nobody to blame but me. But leaders who dodge blame, they make themselves look weak. They make themselves look a little shady, right? You already know they're shady if they're blaming people and they're not taking responsibility. They're not developing people. They're not training people. They're not helping people. They're not making sure the people have the right resources. And I'll tell you, I got a couple of books. If you're a formal authority leader or desire to be one, you want to be a better leader, a couple of books for you to check out: Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision, Unleash Your Team's Potential. That's one. And then 10 Values of High Impact Leaders. If I were you, I'd add them two to my collection. I'd go read them things, mark them up, think about it. And that's the whole thing. Don't read them just fast as you can. That's not what these kind of books are intended for. Read them slow and methodically. Read down a paragraph or two and then go back up. Because what came before will mean more after you've read what came after that. So that's the way I read. I read down a few paragraphs, then I go back up. Then I go down a few more, and then I go back up. I'm going up and down the page. Because once I read something, then I need to go back and see what did it say before that. Because now it's got a bigger meaning to me. I'm sure you can understand if you read that way. If not, give it a try. You might learn more. Because a lot of people, they just want to turn pages. They just want to get through with a book. They just want to hurry through it so they can say they read the book. So go check out those two books. They'll help you. I've also got a course on Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision. That book, got a 7.5-hour course on that. Check out Blue Collar Leadership Academy.com. And or you can go to bluecollarleadership.com/leaders, where you can learn all about that book and access free download, an excerpt, a free audio sample, And you can also watch about 9 minutes of that 7.5 hour audio course. So bluecollarleaders.com bluecollarleadership.com/leaders, LEADERS will get you to that, all that content about that blue collar leadership and supervision book. All right, let's wrap it up with number 5. And this is one, man, I just had a lot of bad bosses. That's all I can tell you. And that's why I could give you probably 100 or more traits that bad bosses have. Because every good trait, there's an opposite bad trait. And that's what most of the bosses who are terrible bosses, bad bosses, weak leaders, insecure leaders, they operate out of a collection of all the opposites of the good traits. So number 5, this 5th trait that'll cause a leader to lose integrity is playing games. And I'm talking about playing mind games to get what they want. They pit people against each other. You know, they when they're doing this, usually they're manipulating everybody, but they manipulating everybody in different ways a lot of times. But they manipulate people, their people on their crew. They manipulate their boss. They manipulate support people. They probably home manipulating their family. That's just who they are. I can promise you this, you don't want to be manipulated. Guess what? No one else does either. Manipulation means I'm trying to do something purely for my benefit. I care less what you get out of it. And there's a lot of leaders like that. They don't necessarily want you to get something bad, but they don't care what you get. They just want to make sure they get something good. That means they're trying to manipulate. High impact leaders try to motivate. That's mutual benefit. Yeah, they want to get something good, but they want to do it in a way that allows you to also get something good. These bad leaders, though, they pit people against each other. You know, these game players out there, these leaders playing games, they'll tell somebody something, see what they're going to say or do to somebody else. Or they may make up a lie. We talked about that at the first. The first trait was lying. A lot of times these leaders playing games will go tell somebody that somebody said something who they didn't say it. They're just making it up, trying to get somebody else to say something. That's what they do. They play these games. And they bend the rules, but they don't always bend them for everybody. They play in games. I may let you slide, but I don't let the other guy slide. You've seen these folks. They bend in rules for themselves. They bend in rules for some folks, but they don't bend the rules for everybody because they're playing a game. And their whole game is that they want to come out on top. The crew feels it. The team feels it. People get irritated, frustrated. And when they do the same exact thing that all these other traits cause them to do. They start getting ready to walk out the door. That's what you're going to get, a lot of turnover. Bosses with these traits and a lot of the other traits I'm not talking about today, but bosses with these traits, usually they got high turnover. That means there's a lot of people firing the boss. They're getting fired by their team and their crew. A lot of times these bosses don't even realize they can be fired by their crew. They know they can fire the crew, but they don't realize the crew members can fire them. Team members can fire them. It's called quit. Go find another boss. But most folks call it turnover to make it sound good. And they blame all kinds of things except for the fact of the person in the mirror, the boss, is the number one reason people leave a job. It has been for a long, long time. It ain't the only reason, but it's always the number one reason. Something to do with the boss. Could be these 5 things without a doubt. Could be the boss don't pay them well. Could be a lot of things. But the bottom line to all this stuff, good leaders are straight up. They're consistent. They're humble enough to admit their mistakes. And they care enough that they put the team before themselves. You know, it's leaders. I've read a lot of military books. I was also in the Marine Corps and the infantry, but I read tons and tons before I started reading leadership, I read a lot of military books by people who were in all different types of roles and different jobs in different branches of the military, all the branches, all different types of jobs. And basically, it was all stuff related to the Vietnam War. For some reason, I was interested in that for a lot of years, and I just read tons of books from all kind of folks who were in that war doing different jobs. I was wanting to just get a big picture of how it was for everybody in different jobs. But anyway, that's where I saw a lot of times, the leader, the top ranking officer, they would go first when they would go into battle. I'm thinking right now of General Hal Moore. He wasn't a general then, but when he led the guys on the helicopter into battle, he was the first guy off the helicopter in the combat zone where they were getting shot at and about to shoot at some folks. He was the first one off the helicopter in the combat zone. He was also the last one on the helicopter in the same combat zone when they got lifted out. That's what I'm talking about. High impact leaders, they put the team before themselves. But because he was that kind of leader, his team was looking out for him big time. That's what you want your team to do. You want your team to have your back. You want them to be looking out for you. And one way they can do that, high production, quality work safely, because maybe they don't even care about wearing the safety glasses, but they're going to wear them to keep you from getting in trouble with your boss because they respect you. That's what you want. Do the opposite of these 5 things. But when a boss has these bad traits, they ain't got respect. People may respect their position because they have to keep their job, but they don't respect the leader because they don't have to keep their job. All they have to do to keep the job is respect the leader's position. Do what they're told, how they're told, that sort of stuff. They can hate the leader and keep the job as long as they respect the leader's position. Morale tanks. It's bad teams to be on. I've been on them teams. I've been on them teams where pretty much all the time we were talking, all the time, and I had never read this stuff then, so I hadn't done the work on me that I needed to do. But back in those days, I'm talking about especially in my early 20s, all the time we were talking at work, we were bad-mouthing the boss because the boss sucked. He was terrible. And that's what we do. We talk about him at break. We talk about him at lunch. We talk about him when we were chatting on the shop floor. Talk about them away from work, after work, before work. That's what people do. You probably know this if you've worked places with a bad boss and you did it at a time when you maybe hadn't developed yourself. And you may not have developed yourself to that level now, and you may still be doing it. But when a boss has all these bad traits, people quit. They fire the boss. Or, like I said earlier, they do worse. They quit but stay, do the bare minimum forever, or they do the bare minimum until they can find them a new place to go. But all that happens for the boss. He gets another team member. He does them the same way, leads them poorly, and round this boss goes. And he blames the people forever. That's just the way it works. All right. Hope you got some value out of today's episode. And I remind you, if you're still listening, I have started a TikTok. I don't play games on there. I don't do stupid stuff, all that stuff. I just teach little nuggets. And I've started sharing those videos actually out on my other social media platforms because TikTok's actually got a good editing software that you can make your videos. So been doing more videos, sharing them out in other places. Actually taking a lot of my old videos and chopping them up into small clips for TikTok. But then I realized people like to watch these on short videos on all the other platforms too. So they'll be everywhere. But if you're on TikTok, just look for @the Blue Collar Leadership and check that out. Also, if you got some ladies in your life, I tell you, my wife Rhea, she started a new podcast called Grace Every Day. And she talks about she's going to be putting out content for Christian wives of blue collar guys. That's a tagline there. It's going to be some good stuff. And if that resonates, make sure you tell your ladies about it, whoever that may be. Could be your spouse, girlfriend, mother, daughter, sister. Doesn't matter. But Ria puts out some great content, so check it out. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.